Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Compassion and Courage Conversations in Healthcare. I'm your host, Marcus Engel, and this is the podcast where I teach compassionate communication, provide perspective, and inspire resilience. Now, if you know me very well, you know that I am an avid reader. I spend a lot of time reading. I've been a big fan of literature and books ever since I rediscovered my love for reading in high school. And over the last 15 years, I've become acquainted with an author. Some of you may already know about it. His name is Coraghessan Boyle. He's an American novelist. And I first came across his works, like I said, about 15 years ago, where he takes situations that have actually happened and then he fictionalizes them. So, for example, one of his books is called The Inner Circle, and that looks at the relationship with Timothy Leary and Ram Dass back in the 60s at Harvard. And another is called Outside Looking In, which is a book about the Kinsey Project back in, the 40s probably, studying human sexuality. So he fictionalizes these events that actually happen. And now, not all of his stories are about true events, but many of them are. The most recent book that I came across really kind of reminded me a little bit of myself. And I'll tell you why. This most recent book of T.C. Boyle's that I read is called The Tortilla Curtain. And it takes place back in the 90s, and it's a pretty idyllic place around Los Angeles, around the canyons of Los Angeles, and some wealthy homeowners who are in a gated community. And these wealthy homeowners are disturbed and dismayed by how many people who are homeless are living in the canyons and who are sleeping under overpasses, and they're bathing in the rivers around Los Angeles. And the story is really one of xenophobia and ethnocentrism about how do we think of ourselves as the inside and others on the outside. So the story follows a couple who has moved up from Mexico looking for a better life. And of course, it's a novel, so we can go in and out of the minds of these characters. This may be a traditional story, but it's one that I hadn't heard before, that one of the characters, one of the immigrant characters, relayed. And he said that in his village where he grew up, there was a man, and that man and wife owned a pig. And instead of keeping their pig for breeding purposes or for meat, the man went out and he sold the family pig, got the money, and went on a week-long bender. Booze and being out of the house, and he came home hungover with his tail between his legs, and his wife did not speak to him for 20 years. And on his deathbed, he looks across the room and he says, "Maria, Maria, please speak to me." And she said one word: drunkard. Drunkard. What a grudge that woman carried. What a grudge that woman carried. And when I read this, it made me think, I don't want to be like that woman. I want to have grace and forgiveness for those who have wronged me. So often I think we feel wronged by another person, and maybe we feel that way, but the truth of the matter is maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Now, maybe not selling the family pig and going on a bender is a misunderstanding, but how often have the grudges that we have held throughout life, or the tension that we have had with family or friends, resulted so much from a misunderstanding versus an actual harm that has been done? I know I've done it. I know that sometimes one of my really bad traits is that I can hold a grudge for a long time. But I do think that after reading this story, after hearing the story of the wife and the husband who did not speak for 20 years, it tells me I don't want to be that person. And if I don't want to be that person, I've got to actively work against being that person. I have to practice compassion and love and grace and forgiveness for everyone, for everyone. And that's sometimes a little hard for me because you know why? I'm human. And if you're a human who has also struggled with letting past hurts go, join me. Join me in an effort not to be that person. Be intentional about forgiving. Be intentional about letting past hurts go. Don't spend your life being angry. Don't spend your life being angry. We have far too much opportunity to do that. There are too many people who benefit from us feeling angry at one another and separating friends and families. Don't play into it. Don't be that guy. Be the bigger person. Be that loving, forgiving presence in the lives of others. I want to thank you so much for joining me today for this episode of Compassion and Courage, Conversations in Healthcare. I am Marcus Engel. I'm your host, and this is the podcast where I teach compassionate communication, provide perspective, and inspire resilience. Thank you all so much for being with me today. Please remember to rate and review, subscribe, and share the podcast. We really appreciate you helping us get the word out. We'll see you next time on the CNC podcast.